Hey everybody, welcome back to another video, and in today's video we will be talking about the best builds for each character. So there are some things that you need to know to basically build every single character in the game. First of all, there are 4 different types of characters in the game, and there's also 4 different types of builds that you should have in the game. First of all, the first type is obviously morale, overpower, technique, and assault. These do not have an effect on your build unless it's for a substat, which is of course the respective attack substat that you should be having on every chip. For example, morale, obviously the morale attack substat, overpower, and so on and so forth. The other type of characters I'd like to talk about is basically this type right here. So if I go to my character and I go to gameplay and skill list, I've said this many times before, but if you look at their exclusive quality for the SSR, it will say impassion. That means it is an impassioned character. You should build a negative crit on this character, and you basically max out different stats. So all impassioned characters currently are negative critical hit, as well as the negative crit damage characters that also have a negative critical hit. Except this time you want to fully build their negative critical hit so that the negatives should be down in the negative 100s or so, as low as you possibly can make it. That way you maximize the extra crit damage in their exclusive quality, which is you get a 70% damage bonus with negative crit hit if it is triggered. So you actually do more damage if you do a negative crit. Alright, so that's one of them. As well as composure breakers like Atomic Samurai here. It says composed mind. That's how you know it's a composure breaker. You get a attack boost for the more composure reduction you have. So for the substats you would build would be technique and composure reduction, so that you get an attack bonus with your composure reduction on top of getting the original composure reduction that is in the substat, which gives you a huge bonus, which is amazing for your damage output. Next character, which is the last character type I'd like to talk about, is the exclusive quality Sharp Eye, also known as crit rate. So basically it increases the level limit by 2, so you essentially want to max out the crit rate so you can get as many critical hits as possible, which would be very, very solid for these characters, because down the line the potentials will give you increased mind reader, which is crit damage, which would make it so you do an insane amount of damage with your critical hit. So those are the 4 types I just want to talk about. They're the easiest to find when they are in the SSR category, right? But as well, there are also different types of characters like their arms. For example, this guy is a damage dealer because of his arms. This guy is a composure breaker because of his arms. This guy is a healer because of his arms. So these don't really go hand in hand. For example, you have an impassioned character here. That doesn't necessarily mean anything, because this guy's a healer and impassioned. This guy's an impassioned and a damage dealer. So these can really switch around, but the one thing that stays permanently is basically the composure reduction arms. If you are a composure breaker with the composed mind exclusive quality, you will always have this as your top of the line arms. For example, Zombie Man, same thing. Atomic Samurai, same thing right here. And other characters like the SR characters I like to talk about as well. So they have the same thing basically the same thing, except you look for their potential and you look at potential too, and it'll say more composure reduction stat. That's how she knew a composure breaker. Penetrating eye limit. This is a crit rate character. Here, this guy's a crit rate character. This guy's also a crit rate character. This guy is a negative crit and negative crit. So these guys don't really have impassion and other stuff like that. They mainly have composure breaker, crit users, and negative crit users for SRs. Not really any impassion there. But yeah, that's what I like to talk about. It's always going to be potential 2 for SR characters to detect which kind of type of character they are. As well as their arms, they can tell you a little bit about them. For example, this guy's a breaker. This guy is a damage dealer, this guy's a healer, and this guy is also a healer, as well as this guy being kind of a tank because of his kind of more tankier gameplay. So basically the builds, they kind of revolve around different types of characters. For example, impassion characters would have a specific build. For example, if I go to auto equip, this is the ideal build. Total affix level limit, note that is 22 out of 24. Basically, this should be the order. I don't really have the right order that they should be in terms of order of importance, but I'd like to talk about that very soon. So affix effect, I'm actually going to add an affix effect here for mechanism, or no, countermeasure. We're going raid humanoid, and we're going to max that out so you get max substats. So the most important thing you should have is the character signature. This goes for every single character in the game. You want the character signature affix here that is exclusive to this character and only this character. Same goes for Genos, where he has the same thing right here. And then after that, what you want to build is their signature things. For example, if it's an impassioned character, you want to build impassion first. If it's a negative crit character, you want to build resolute attack first. So you should build impassion, then build resolute attack, right? And then after you're done these two, then you can move on to added bonuses like resolute rage. And then once you're done those, then you can go for extra things that you don't really need that are more exclusive and more different towards kind of the gameplay of the character and how they play. So obviously the type of this character is an impassion. So all these cards up to here should be basically necessary for his build, right? Because these are all the cards that you need, right, to basically make the best build. And then after this, all of these are bonuses. So these are 6 affixes that are completely bonus. Swift moves, so you can dodge farther, so you can dodge into your attacks with Saitama and dodge away from your attacks, because a lot of his attacks revolve around dodging, and basically you get a damage bonus from your dodge because they basically change your attacks when you dodge and then attack. So it's good to have a dodging affix here, which is his increasing its dodge distance. You could also replace this with like acute insight for accurate dodge, because he does have an accurate dodge. Now for raid, this is because he has a bonus raid damage. So you actually get a level increase for your raid, and basically this would actually be level limit up to 4. So I'd actually scratch these two. So for example, you get a 20% damage bonus for certain bosses, specific bosses. This is why I don't like impassioned characters, because it's only for a specific boss. You only get a 20% damage increase for a specific boss. This will extend to 4 copies if you have his potential up. So that's why this would be considered a spare. Now for the like default build for Genos, composure reduction would be, of course, raid break. So how you would run his character is you would basically run respect for master. That is your main affix. Then after you build raid break, then you build these two. Whatever works the best, you build penetrating eye and then mind reader. And then after you've done those, then you can move on to the spares, which is impassion and blatant strike. So basically, of course, the substats for this one are a little different. Usually you just want attack and type attack, but this guy for composure reduction, you're going to be running composure reduction and overpower attack, or your type attack, because it'll do more damage in the long run. So the impassion here is just to boost attack. Impassion can be run on any character in the game, even crit characters, even any other characters that aren't impassion or negative hit characters. You can still run impassion, because who doesn't want more damage, right? And then blatant strike here is just for the critical hit, because there's nothing else you can really put here. There's not really many leftovers you can put. Nothing can really increase your attack that much. Like maybe victory rush if you're a negative crit, maybe range of truth. I guess range of truth, but he switches from melee to ranged. So I'd probably just suggest at this point blatant strike, because you'll be hitting the enemy head on most of the time, except for his heel kick, right? So basically all of these above impassion are all necessary, and then these are just 2 bonus, right? Now for a, let's go here, a crit character for Tatsumaki, the main affix you would want to run, which is the most important, would be, where is it, mechanism. It would be piece of cake, or easy peasy, that's what it's called. It used to be called piece of cake. So here we have this, right? Then after, we're going to work on our crit rate. So that means penetrating eye maxed out, all the way maxed out, and then that means also mind reader all the way maxed out, right? And then after that, you want to go on and use basically Impassion next. So Impassion is going to be next after you've completed these, right? It should be all in chronological order here. And then after you're done that, then you can work on other affixes like Range of Truth, where obviously you're at optimal distance. This will boost your crit rate. So if you do it right, you'll actually get a 100% crit rate, which would be very, very, very beneficial for you. Other things that you could possibly get, I don't think you need any more crit rate because you kind of maxed it out at this point. But I guess you could probably run something like Swift Moves. Swift Moves would be very nice. And because you need to dodge farther, because some modes actually restrict your dodging distance a little bit, especially when you're in the telekinetic mode, as well as Acute Insight, because down the line she does have a accurate dodge that you could potentially exploit with Acute Insight to get the perfect timing, and you don't really need any skill to be doing those. So substat, here are the substats you should be using. Assault, of course, and then attack, and then obviously every single attack stat here for substat, and then of course these affixes. So after you've done that, then that's how you know you built your character properly. So like I said, easy peasy, Penetrating Eye, Mind Reader, Impassion, and then Range of Truth, Swift Moves, and Acute Insight are completely optional. You don't really need them, but they do help out. And then obviously you need to get the best main stats, substats, and all that for the highest attack you can get, so you can actually clobber the enemies, right? So in fact, you could drop these just to get the best chips possible for attack. Note that the whales will be very hard to max out gold, so a lot of this is very unachievable, for example, because a lot of people still are stuck with level 1 whales like me, so you can't really make the perfect build 23 out of 23 affixes. Now, we're getting on to the negative crit characters, like my Mask, a Metal Knight, etc. Those characters have been proven to be the best characters. You need a negative crit to run them properly. So first of all, we're going to prioritize our Perfect Intent, which is our signature affix. Then after that, we're going to go for main stat, or whatever you want. It genuinely, basically you just want to be running this as your stats, right? And then for affixes, same thing, Impassion. Preferably you would want to build Resolute Attack first and that kind of stuff. But a lot of these potentials that I don't have actually increase your stuff. So for example, something I made a mistake for is probably scratch Acute Insight, because when you level up your characters in for potential, she's actually going to get 2 extra slots for Mind Reader. So do know that, like, this build wouldn't be possible. It wouldn't be good if you didn't have those potentials. If you did have those potentials, because you would want to get 5 out of 5 instead, right? So yeah, so you probably wouldn't want to run the extra Acute Insight here, but you'd want to run 5 out of 5 Mind Reader instead. Now, same thing for my Mask. These kind of become like 7 out of 7 Resolute, and then whatever Impassion is, I have no clue. I think it's still 5 out of 5. So with all that considered, after you're done making these two, you want to be running a Resolute Rage. This is obviously a surplus. This is kind of what you have as well, and that's going to get your negative crit really low, which is very good for you. So this may not get your negative crit. I think it will actually, because you have 7 and 7, but you actually deal more damage than the lower your crit is, I think. So if you go to potential, as you can see, I get 3 more Resolute Attack, right? And then every 1% negative crit generates a more amount of damage, a maximum up to 10%. So basically what you want to be running is a negative 100%, I think. Negative crit? I think that's what it is. Yeah. 100% negative crit will deal way more damage. So you want to make it as low as possible. So that means getting your, basically your negative crit really, really low. So again, I'm going to go to builds if I can get there. And I would want to run something like, let's just say 3 more of these slots are taken up, right? So that's 18 out of 21, so I can only run 3 more. Oops, I just cleared it. Okay, well, I'm gonna build them back again. So after you're building this, right, you want to be running basically negative crit. If your negative crit's already maxed, you don't need to. You don't need to run anything at all. Extra bonuses like resolute defense or resolute survival that would basically pull down your crit rate because it's not really necessary, and you want to be aiming for the most amount of damage. Now, these give you more damage because they lower your crit rate, and that's what makes them better. But if you don't lower your crit rate, then there's no point having them, right? So if that's the case, if that is the case, you want to be running, let's see here. Since dodge range is really nice to have, especially considering AoE and stuff, you could run possibly swift moves would be very nice to have. And then you have room for like one more affix. It's really not that big of a deal, but I guess I could probably run like there's nothing really that good that you can really run here. I guess maybe, yeah, there's nothing really good. So I think that's it. You'd probably run maybe like, oof, I don't even know, maybe like first strike for that 4% alt point. I don't know. But this would be your build for a My Mask. Obviously, these are basically dependent on his character, and then the other ones you should have on every single resolute damage character in the game. So that's basically for SSRs. Same applies for SRs, right? Let's see. I can't really scroll here. I think I'm bugged. But here we go. Same thing for Spring Mustachio. Same for like composure reduction characters. And then since there's no impassioned characters, you would want to run the resolute attack on characters like Smile Man, and also crit rate characters for characters like this guy, right? But this guy's a little different because he has a current max of 5 penetrating eyes and 4 mind readers instead of the other ones that Tatsumaki would have, right? So Tatsumaki would have 6 out of 6 and 5 out of 6. So he actually has more space for more cards. So again, this is one more exception we have, the last exception, because the builds have been a little different lately. So obviously you want to build crit rate, you want to build impassion, and you want to build mind reader, right? The thing is you want to build all of these as well as this character stat. And like I said, you want them to be in the same order like I said, right? First of all, signature affix, then crit rate, then impassion. And then once you're done that, then you can move on to the main stats, and then the substats, and then the other substats right here. And then once you're done those, then you can move on to your extra affixes. So if you want to get him a really good crit rate here, we're going for a blatant strike. And we are going for maybe like, I guess you could probably run sneak attack as well if you're hitting them, hitting the bosses in the back instead of attacking them head on. You could also run a swift moves to basically dodge faster and farther, so you can get around the map faster and ultimately challenge bosses easier. So this would be the build you're running. Your crit rate would be at around 80% with these two here. If you want to get 100% crit rate, you could also probably run Victory Rush if you have a Composure Breaker on your team, or Monolith Duel. This would basically just be no active movement though. So basically you can't really move around with your WASD, which kind of inhibits your dodging for swift moves. So I guess if you wanted that 100% crit rate for the maximum amount of DPS you want to do, you'd probably run Victory Rush just in case you get a composure reduction. You could run this build here, and this build would basically destroy with a 60% crit damage as well as 100% crit rate on Lightning Max. So yeah, that's kind of the builds you want to run with characters like these, and they can vary between characters like this guy's Golden Ball. So if you were to run the same thing that that Lightning Max would run, you would run instead. You would probably run Monolith Duel potentially because he's staying still a lot of the time, right? But mostly Range of Truth and maybe Blatant Strike for his crit boost because he's ranged, right? So you need to keep in mind the different playstyles of each character. all of them, like I talked about, are the archetypes of building. So they're very default builds that everybody runs. For example, me, I run basically, I glitched it. Okay, no, I didn't. Okay, so obviously Impassion character, Impassion first, then Resolute Attack, then Resolute Rage, then Utmost Yearning, or Utmost Yearning first actually, because signature affix, and then after all of those, there I did my Swift moves. This is like a bonus one that I did. So then after I'm completed all the fundamentals, then I can extend and do whatever I want. So Swift moves because he's a dodging based character, so I put it on him so he can dodge around easier and basically move faster. He's a very fast character on my team. Genos, obviously all of this, Raid Break needs to be maxed, and then Blatant Strike as well. But there are a couple characters here, exceptions that I'd like to talk about. These do not follow the builds. They are very unorthodox, and they can actually benefit you a lot if you build them a certain way that you're not supposed to. So for Composure Breaker, you could potentially run a damage character on Zombie Man. So that would mean maxing out your Impassion to get the most out of your attack. But of course, like I said, with Raid Break does come attack as well for Impassion. So yes, Impassion gives you a little bit more, but if you fully build Raid Break, you could get the damage bonus as well as the composure reduction. So in the long run, Raid Break could be better. But Spring Mustachio is a little different. A lot of the times you can't really build this to max, especially 85% composure reduction doesn't really get you very far. Rather than the, the 100 and freaking 25 the SSRs give you. So Spring Mustachio, you could also max out Impassion as well, and then put all the leftovers in Raid Break whenever you can. So again, a great build for him would be this, where you run max Raid Break and max Impassion for the maximum damage output, as well as, of course, maxing out your crit rates, so this guy can absolutely stomp the enemy. So yeah, that's kind of what you want to build for characters like these, and I just really wanted to talk about how to build each character, with certain exceptions like Zombie Man and Spring Mustachio, who can run mainly attack and then Raid Break instead of the other way around. Obviously, you can build however you want, but these are the builds that people have been using for ever since the game launched. These are kind of the builds people have been using, and if you're building them differently, I suggest changing them to fit more like the ones I have. But of course, at the end of the day, it is your choice. And let me know which builds are the best and the ones that work for you. Anyways, that's about it, everybody. Have a great day, and see you guys in the next video.